I believe this may be one of the most important meetings we've had in Speakers Bureau, and I've been here a lot of years, almost 10 years now, because we're providing a public service. Hopefully there will be some in the public that will benefit from what is going to happen tonight, and I will certainly pay attention, although it's, as I was saying, the HR people that will be teaching people how to do well in the interview. It's been 58 years since my wife or I ever had to apply for a job, so if that comes up, hopefully I'm a little more prepared in the future if that is a necessary event. But thank you all for being here. Appreciate the official last. This is the fireworks after the end of the fireworks show. This is the official last meeting of the District 12 Speakers Bureau, and so we wanted it to be a very special program. Timing was perfect, and in June to have something like this about all those people that are finishing up school, looking for future. And I actually was out there using my Toastmasters skills and tried to recruit somebody who was trying to go home from work here at the hospital. And they were really intrigued, except they had to be somewhere. But I said, well, maybe you'll be able to check it out on YouTube, because it will be recorded and it will be available. And my real goal for this was not just to help people who are members of District 12 and Toastmasters find those jobs that they might want to improve themselves with, but non-Toastmasters. And I was really hoping we'd have a lot of non-Toastmasters. I did some publicity in Riverside Unified School District, but I'm not sure if anybody made it. But if they did, that's great, and this is a service for them. And I will get back to our July 1 meeting. When this meeting is over, I'll close it out with that. But we will also, I'm sure, have a chance to talk about why it's important to be somewhere on Saturday. But let's get this party started, and let's talk about what we're going to have going on tonight. And we will start with one of our past district governors, Angie Nett, who has been doing HR for 15, 20, maybe 25 years. I don't know, I want to make her look any older than she is, but I want to say those nice things. She is very experienced, and she will be conducting it with two other very experienced people who have done a lot of job interviews, and she will do their introduction. So, past District Governor Angie Nett.
Do I have to hold this?
You have to put it somewhere. I'd do it, but the old corsage thing, I don't want to get slapped.
And this can go in my pocket? Yes. All right. Hello, Toastmasters. Are we excited? Hello to everyone on our Zoom windows. It looks like a great crowd tonight. Who is here because you're looking for work? 1, 2. On the Zoom windows, who's looking for work? Paul. All right. Well, we hope that you will learn something here tonight. The way we're going to work is that I will talk briefly about resumes, and then Sarah Kearney, our district director-elect and director of education at Arrowhead Medical Center, will talk to us a little bit about strategy in the interview and delivery during your interview. Then we have Deanne Gunneman, managing director of Analytic Yena, make sure I get that right, Analytic Yena US. She will bring you some information about how to bring your story to life tonight. Then, of course, our goal is to have you move from simply putting out your resume to actually getting that offer. That's our hope for you. Before we get into interviews, I want to talk a little bit about resumes, because there are some common mistakes with resumes. Number 1, make sure that your name and contact information is correct. I know this sounds simple, but you would be surprised at how many resumes have this incorrect, and then you can't get a hold of the person. And I would like to add a little information about emails. You really don't want to, I had to write down a good one because I knew I wouldn't be able to come up with one on the fly. But if you've had an email address for 20 years that is partygirlforlife@yahoo.com, I recommend you change it. And change it to something like angie.net@yahoo.com. Or what was another one? Beer Pong Champ 88 at Yahoo. We don't want to apply for a job with those email addresses, okay? It's easy to get a free Gmail account or a Hotmail account. Just get a new one, and it's probably good for you to keep track of all of your job information with that one email anyway. So that is a recommendation that I am surprised at how often we find these funny little email addresses. Would you agree, Sarah? Yes. And then work experience. I know if you're re-entering the workforce, Suzanne mentioned she's looking for work, she's re-entering or changing positions or something. You do not need to put 25 years worth of information on your resume. You can put the last 10 years. You can put more if you like, but I recommend you don't put 3 pages of everything that you did when you worked at Jamba Juice, okay? You don't need all of that. You want to just put about 3 bullets, maybe up to 5 bullets. And when you're putting these bullets on your resume, you want to focus on your accomplishments, not just your duties. So I'll let you know what that looks like. Less effective bullet points would be I answered phones at Staples, right? You'd rather put I managed a multi-line phone system supporting employees and customers and vendors. See how that sounds? A little bit different than I answered phones, right? And then the person that's interviewing, will want to know more about that. How many lines? Was it for 1 location? Was it for 4 locations? It gives you a little bit more interesting comments to talk about. Another one, filed paperwork. Okay, you worked in an office environment and you answered phones, filed paperwork. No. Improved document organization and retrieval by maintaining accurate electronic documents or paper filing systems, depending on how it worked. Then there's worked in human resources. Now people will often ask me, what do you do? And I say human resources. That's it. And sometimes someone next to me will say something else like, oh no, she's been here for 15 years, and they'll add to it. So I am one of those that'll just give you a quick answer. But I'm not interviewing, so that's okay. But you could say, instead of human resources, assisted with onboarding, benefits administration, employee records for a 500-person workforce. Sounds a little bit better than I worked in human resources, right? So the goal is to help the reader understand the value that you brought to that organization. And you should be able to come up with that in 3 to 5 bullets. Now, most employers already know what a receptionist is, but maybe you could say what you did as a receptionist, because when I was a receptionist, I did a whole lot more than just the receptionist job. I did dispatch and all these other types of things that were related to the front door, right? So you want to say things like, what did I say earlier? Manage the multi-line phone system, dispatch drivers to whatever the case may be. Then there's education. Now, if you are just graduating with a degree that is very relevant to this role, then you want to put your education and the years you graduated. But let's say that you graduated 35 years ago. Don't put down that you graduated 35 years ago. Just put, I have a master's degree in mechanical engineering, bachelor's degree in industrial systems, whatever the case may be. Because when you have the extra work experience with it, it's not going to matter when that happened. But if you're graduating this year, I want to know. If you're graduating next year, I want to know. So you have to think about my audience, and what do I want to tell them? Because you don't want to tell them that that you graduated so long ago if it's very relevant, because you may have all this work experience that you can talk about. Correct? Make sense? All right. How are we doing on Zoom? Organizations and good.
How about 50?
Organization. What did he say?
I was going to say, what about 50 years ago?
50 years? Then you might want to put it because they're like, wow, he's looking for work? No. I'm kidding. Organizations and volunteer experience. Now, I have interviewed a lot of recent graduates that don't realize how important the organizations and the volunteer work that you've done is to your resume. If you are going to be in management or leadership and you put on there that you have been in Toastmasters for however many years you want to put in there, they're going to look at that and they'll probably ask you, so what's the Toastmasters about? How long have you been in? And if they know anything about Toastmasters, they may ask you, what's your designation? Right? They may know. When I see it, I always ask about it and I want to know. What clubs are you in? And then sometimes I know somebody that was in the club. But you want to put that. Recent graduates. I interview a lot of engineers. Recent graduates that they were an Eagle Scout. It takes a lot of work to be an Eagle Scout. It takes a lot of work to get your bachelor's degree. That tells us something. So don't think that because I'm not asking for an Eagle Scout that you don't want to put it on there. Because it says something on the resume. If you have 3 resumes and they're all the same, except one says Eagle Scout, they're going to grab that one. Guaranteed. So don't think that that is not important. Of course, you don't want to put 25 of them, but put the one that seems to say the most about who you are, about your values, about what you've done over the last 4 or 5 years, something like that. Then, very, very, very important. We have access to AI, whether it's Google, Chatty, Claude, whatever. We have access to help us with our resumes. You have to make sure that whatever you put on your resume, you can speak to. Don't put anything on there. Don't put words you don't know or didn't actually do. Maybe your coworker did. Make sure that you can speak to everything on your resume. Every word, every year, the works. We have interviewed people and you say, oh, can you tell me about this senior project where you worked on blah, 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 blah? And they go, oh, yeah. And then they don't know what to say because they didn't actually work on that one. They thought that one sounded better than the one they really worked on. You don't want to do that. You want to be able to speak to everything you put on there. Even if you put you're an Eagle Scout, you might have an Eagle Scout that's interviewing you. And they're going to ask you all about that. Where were you? Where'd you do your hikes? Where'd you do your overnights? You know, all these things that... What badges did you get? So you want to make sure you can speak to everything on your resume. Let's see, what else do I have for you? Any employment gaps, you want to make sure you put those on there. Now, some HR professionals might disagree with me. However, your resume is not going to get you the job. For sure. That's not what the resume is for. The resume is to get you the interview. And then hopefully your interview will get you the job. Maybe interview, assessments, another interview. But anyway, the resume is not going to get you the job. You want to entice them to call you and come in for that interview. Some sample gaps. Let's say you graduated and you put that date on there, you got your bachelor's degree in 2020. It's a good year. Then you had a gap, right? You can explain that gap. Perhaps that gap was from 2020 to 2023, I took care of my elderly grandmother because we were so worried about COVID and da-da-da, right? But you can just put 20 to 24 caretaker and be prepared to speak to it. 20 to 24, Peace Corps. 20 to 24, whatever it is. Because if you don't address the gap, they may discount it and not call you in because somebody else has all of their information, right? Of course, we're thinking about if there's a group of resumes, I have 20 resumes, and I'm going to pick the 5 best. So you don't want to leave any question that your resume is one of those best. Any other questions on resumes? Yes.
I actually talked, I don't know if these people can hear me or not, but I actually talked to a person who was in Toastmasters, but said he got his job because he had Toastmasters written on his application and he'd only been to one meeting. That's what got him, they were more interested in him because he was doing it.
There's a lot of initiative into that. Often, I have people at work that will come to me and they'll say, Angie, I noticed that you're in Toastmasters. What can you tell me about it? I tell them about it. I send them links. I ask them where they would like to go. Would you like to go on Zoom, in person, Riverside, Redlands? I send them everything, a little blurb about Toastmasters, and they don't do anything. Then there's the ones that will say, can you tell me about Toastmasters? 2 of them joined Deer Valley Toastmasters. One comment that said, you know, there's a club that meets down the street from you on Thursday nights. They went online, called, went down. I don't think they're there anymore, but spent a couple of years in Toastmasters because that's what they need to do. It takes initiative to do those sorts of things. So people will ask you about it. It takes initiative to be the president of the club in college. And hopefully you finished out the year. Any questions on resumes?
Andy,
You didn't want to spend...
online.
Yes.
Me. Okay.
Yes, Michael.
Working for the government, the resumes also go through some kind of awful AI system, filter. So look at the job description. Be sure the words in the job description are in the resume. Don't lie. But if they say, you know, managed a group of people and developed a strategic plan, make sure you have those. If you've done that, make sure those words are somewhere in the resume, because it's all about those hits. Don't, again, never lie, but make sure you change your words if you did that work so it matches what the AI is looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. He actually brought up a couple of things I want to mention, and then I'll take your question. There are ATS systems that will look at resumes automatically. I take a little different look at that than maybe some others. Deanne and Sarah may want to speak to this, but my company does not use any automation to select resumes. We have a human being reading each resume. Why? Because we don't want to depend upon a computer or AI to determine, is this best fit for us? We're looking for the best candidates. But there are large companies, that's how they get through thousands and thousands of resumes. Think Google, Apple. How many do they probably have to go through? Plus, they have all the systems to probably be a little bit better at it than I would be, right? But to Michael's point, read the job description and make sure you use some of the same words. If you did that, right, you're looking at that job description thinking that you can do that work. So use some of the same words that they use. Like Michael said, you're not lying, but use some of the same words. That leads to customizing your resume for each job. I recommend this over cover letters. That's just my opinion. Because I'm going to look at 100 resumes and I may not look at a cover letter unless I'm wondering about this person. Because it's in a whole different section. Resumes are up front, application resume, in all the ATSs that I've used. So I would put any customization in the resume itself. And by the way, don't accidentally send the resume to the wrong company. Sarah might like this one. I opened up a resume and it said that their objective was to obtain a position at a reputable medical facility where she could use her degree in nursing. And I said, you just applied to a manufacturer. I said, no, thank you. Because they're trying to get somewhere, anywhere. You can tell this is someone that's just trying to get a job. Her degree was in nursing. She should continue looking in nursing, but she thought she would try applying to a local business and didn't change her objective. I also recommend, if you can't remember to change it, take it out. Don't use an objective. Use perhaps skills-based resume where you put all of your skills at the top and then you go through your work experience. Couple of things. We knew we'd come up with things that were not on our notes. Yes. Okay, tonight we are going to have Sarah talk about strategy. Deanne will talk about storytelling. At this time, please welcome Sarah Kearney.
I'll take the microphone from her.
Okay, here you go.
Perfect. Thank you. Oh, I don't like the look of that. It's draping across. Hold on. There we go. All right. Let's talk about the strategy for the interview. Now, you have submitted your fabulous resume. You put in all the keywords, and now you are going in for an interview. First question for you. When does your interview start? When does your interview actually start? As soon as you get there. Okay? We're watching you the moment you walk in the door. Could it start before that a little bit?
Parking lot.
That's when you research you, right?
Starts a little bit when you apply because we're looking into it. Especially if you drop off that application, maybe you're at a smaller business and you have to take that paper to the office, they're going to make note. What about when they call you to schedule that interview? How you communicate with the person who calls you is going to reflect. Now, as a manager, often I would offload that particular responsibility to my assistant, who would then run into my office. Oh my gosh, you're never going to believe what she just said. You're never going to believe what this person just did. And she would tell me about the person who answered the phone that was like, what's up? Yeah, okay, well, I guess I could come in Friday. 2? Really? You got anything earlier? Ooh, okay. You're excited about this job, right? Yay, I want to interview this person, right? So think about how you're interacting at every single point of contact. One of my favorite things to do as a manager is to have the first person you meet be our receptionist. Now you're coming in for a nursing job. You're going to be a nurse educator if you're coming to my department. And now I'm going to have you sit with the receptionist for 10 minutes. Why? Why do you think I do that?
Let their guard down.
Let their guard down. They're getting comfortable. I might be right around the corner listening. But I'm listening out for how they're interacting with that person. Because that person ultimately is going to be part of their team And I have seen people come in for an interview, walk in the door, and be rude to my front desk receptionist. And I'm this person. I'm here, hiding around the corner and listening. Because I want to know how you're going to interact with everyone on the team. So be very mindful how you walk in that door. And I have some crazy stories. One of my favorite, the lady was sick that day, so she, nice to meet you. We work in healthcare. Thank you. I was over by the hand sanitizer. Nice to meet you too. Okay. Now, some common interview question pitfalls. Let's get into those. You're sitting down. Maybe you have one person. Maybe you have two. I'm a big proponent of never interview alone for many reasons. Mostly because witnessing, having someone else there is very helpful as a manager. So you will likely have maybe more than one person. And a really fun one we love to do is panel interviews. You have 4 people, 3 of which you're going to work with. Those are great because we're getting different dynamics of your personality. We're having other people work with us in the interview process. So, common pitfalls when you start getting into those questions. Number 1, the rambling answer. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, I was born in California, and I've lived in California for 42 years. And while I've lived in California, I have 4 siblings. Get that one right if it's you. But think about those answers. When they ask, tell me a little bit about yourself, they're not asking for your whole life story. They're asking for, well, my name is Sarah. I'm here today to interview for whatever position. I am in love with Toastmasters. It's something I do regularly. I enjoy my free time as an outdoors person, and I love the idea of working for a healthcare facility with the same morals and values that I have. A little bit about me. Not a lot about me, but I'm avoiding that rambling and going on and on and on and on and on. Other common pitfalls that we see in interviews, and these 2 are going to correct me if ever I'm wrong, but I haven't gotten the nod yet. Not answering the actual question. Now, for those of us in Toastmasters, there's a rule in table topics that you can change your question and you can kind of go down whatever rabbit hole you want to go down. Don't do that in an interview. If they ask you about your last job, or say, tell me about a time when you had a conflict, don't start going on about something completely irrelevant. Don't dance around the question. Tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a coworker. Well, I've never really had conflict. I believe in peace, love, and joy. 1, for me, that's a red flag, because you're lying. Show me the person who has never had a conflict with anyone, and I will eat my shoe. But we've all had something, some moment, it doesn't have to be a big conflict. You don't have to have fought with them, but maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe you sent that email out and it was a little too rushed, and you realized, I did have a moment, I sent that email out. It was a little too harsh. I had taken all of the fluff because I was running late, and I just said, hey, where's your report? Instead of saying, good morning. I was wondering if you could give me a status update on that report. So later when we talked, I apologized to my coworker, and I was able to get to that point where we were able to understand each other. Don't just avoid the question or dance around the question. Answer the question. Doesn't have to be the craziest example. That brings me to another point with these questions. Don't be too brief. I think something that I've heard is I ask you a question that is an open-ended question and I get yes. I will sit there quietly until you give me more. But when we're super brief on our answer, we're not really getting into it. Tell me about a time. Those are my favorite questions. But if I say, tell me about yourself, or, how are you today? Good. I'm here. It's not what we're looking for in an interview, okay? So make sure that you're not being overly brief. Tip, trick, moment, you can pause. Do not feel like you have to constantly right after they talk. Make sure you take a pause, okay? Maybe not for 20 minutes, but think about what you're going to say. It's okay to say, and I'm stealing this one from Deanne from the other night when we were prepping. That is a really great question. Give me a moment to think about that, or let me think about that for a moment. You're being reflective, you're being honest, and you're giving yourself time. And then give yourself a nice, good response in that moment. Another one is being overly confrontational. Has anyone encountered this person in an interview? I have. I had an interviewee one time demand that I play tic-tac-toe with them before they left. Okay. It was the most awkward situation, but he was very insistent. I said, no, I don't think we need to do that. Thank you so much for your time. No, I gotta show you that I'm really good at tic-tac-toe. I don't know what that has to do with the nursing career, but for whatever reason, he needed to beat me at tic-tac-toe right there. That's fine. But when you're in those moments, what I'm seeing is a side of your personality that is reflective of what my next few years or 20 years might be. And that is going to stand out when you're overly confrontational. Another one that I love to put out there is not just how you answer the questions verbally, but what is your body doing? Tell me about a time when you've had a conflict with a coworker. You told me everything before you even answered. You had a major conflict. Your face dropped. You gave me a whole look in that moment that tells me, oh, this is gonna be good. Where's the popcorn? I need that for this one. Hold on. And in that moment, especially when it comes to conflict, be a little bit more brief, not overly brief, but we don't need all the details. If there is a conflict moment and Angie and I are working together and I just cannot stand how she stands for whatever reason, or we just don't get along, I don't need to know all the tea and the gossip. And that one time she talked to that one guy that I liked and she didn't like him, but she was talking to him in front of me because she knew. We don't need all that. We're happy to hear, I had a moment where I had a miscommunication with a fellow coworker, and she and I were able to resolve it by talking it out later on. I don't want all the tea. Maybe later, once you have the job, we can have that conversation. You can give me all the tea then. But for the interview moment, you don't want to get into that. And I did have a very good friend at one point in time that went into an interview and decided to vent to them and tell them all the truth during the interview. And I think she told them a little too much truth while she was in there. She was frustrated. She was trying to get out of her current position. And she let them know everything. To which our current manager at the time got a phone call about that interview. So be mindful as to what you're putting out there and what you're saying. Venting about a current organization is another common pitfall, and I've heard it several times. I really don't like This manager is insert whatever you need to insert there. But something you want to be very mindful of how you talk about someone else. You don't know that that manager is not my best friend, especially in a small world like healthcare. We're in a tiny little bubble. You don't know that that's not my best friend for the last 40 years. And even if you're interviewing across the country, I might know them. You never know. So be mindful how you do that. You know, one of the best questions that people love to ask is, why are you leaving your current organization? Or why did you leave your past organization? And that's where we can get into that venting moment where we're going down the spiral of it all. Don't go there. I determined that my morals and values were no longer in alignment with that organization. Something along those lines. I'm telling them I'm leaving because I'm frustrated and I'm angry and I'm upset and I don't want to work there anymore. But I'm saying it so kindly and so professionally. My values no longer aligned with that organization. That's all they need to know. So be mindful of how you get into those moments and how you talk to your interviewer. Okay, let's get into some of the common questions that we hear. Although before we do that, has anyone heard of any other pitfalls? I'm gonna put that out there. Anyone had anything that they've seen or heard, something that they're, oh my gosh, Sarah, you gotta tell them, don't do this. Ooh, yes, April, go for it.
Being late to an interview because they forgot.
Being late to an interview or not showing up for that matter because they forgot. That tells me a lot about how our working life is gonna be. So being very mindful of your time, absolutely. Yeah.
Actually, I have a situation where I can tell you something they should do.
Yes.
We had just recently conducted an interview. We were a panel of 3 conducting an interview for an accounting position, doing accounts receivable. So we asked a specific question about what's deferred revenue. They said, I don't know what that is. But I've done this particular prepaid something example at my job. I said, elaborate on that a little bit. And they elaborated on exactly what they did, how they did it. And guess what? They answered the question we were asking, except it just wasn't, she wasn't using the exact words we wanted her to use. But she let us know with her example that she knows what she's talking about and that she can do that task if we need her to do that task.
So that's a perfect example of what you could do or should do in a situation. I don't know if everyone heard that online, but she shared an example where they used a phrase, deferred revenue. Yeah. Deferred revenue, and the person didn't know what that meant per se, or didn't have the same alignment or same language, but then proceeded to give an example that ended up being completely related. So that person could have stopped at, I don't know what that is. But then they led into, but what I have done is worked with this system, and we found out that they actually did have the experience, they just didn't have that exact term. That's perfect.
There are Horace online and me.
Oh,
Horace,
sorry, I need to turn around.
first. Yeah.
Okay, Horace.
Yeah, my question is, how do you respond to a question that says, what is your greatest weakness?
That's in my next section, but yes, that is a really good one because you will get that question quite often. What is your greatest weakness? And the pitfalls of there, and we can talk a little bit about that. I think the ones that I've heard is, I have no weaknesses. I am perfect. And I joke, and it sounds funny, but these are things I've actually heard. Most of my examples are somewhat true. I may be changing a few details. But yes, definitely want to be avoiding that particular one, or, I'm never on time. I have a hard time being on time. Great. So what you're telling me is we're going to have a problem if you're opening the office. Saying, I personally struggle with delegating. I have often wanted to keep all the work to myself. I feel like I just want to get it done. I have a hard time communicating and sending off my delegation. However, what I've done in the past 3 years is I've worked with an organization known as Toastmasters in their leadership. Yeah, had to throw that one in there, guys. Had to throw that one in there. And in that leadership and in my mentorship, been able to learn how to improve on my delegation skills. And so I've been working on that actively for the last few years. Ooh, give them a weakness, that's fine. Whatever that weakness is for you. But give them how you're mitigating it, how you're working on it, what you're doing to improve, because that's showing emotional awareness, some self-awareness, which we love for emotional intelligence. And you're giving them a response that they're looking for and that you are working towards working past that particular weakness. Yeah. Wait, I don't know who was first.
Michael.
Okay, go, Michael.
So
Or
this is more the end, so maybe you're going to talk about this. I always say that you should have a couple, 1 to 2 to 3 questions, but I did have somebody with a whole page of questions, and that person had lost that job because we don't have an hour to answer everything. They couldn't pick out the 2 or 3 important questions. Drove me crazy. I never wanted to see that person again. So I don't know if you're going to talk about. I don't know if you're going to talk about how to end the interview, which is the 2 questions you should ask and then shut up.
yes, and you're absolutely right, Michael. You should always have at least 1 to 2 questions prepared that you want to ask. What the schedule is, maybe not the best one. I mean, I do get that one quite often. What's the schedule? That is good to know. But something about, I read online that your mission statement is X. To build new clubs and support all clubs in achieving excellence. I don't know. What are you currently doing in your department to achieve that mission? Or what are you currently doing? So showing that you went online, you learned something about the organization, tying it back to their values or their mission statement, it's a great question to ask. It shows that you're perceptive, but you're also interviewing them a little bit. And I think that's giving a good moment there. And it helps you note that you're aligning with that organization and their values. Yeah, absolutely.
I work for Redlands Unified School District, and Redlands, how they interview for being a bus driver, they do a panel. It's a panel of 12, and they interview me. I'm very familiar working with kids on the bus, and they ask my boss, Sam Anderson, we call him. I'm familiar with these drivers. It was very relaxed. They asked me a question, what would you do in this situation? We can't get into a fight. What I said is, I'm moving to another seat. I said, that's right. He said, they all agreed, he said, that's right. Because I'm familiar, I work on the bus with these kids.
Yeah, and knowing that situation and knowing that particular job is a really good point and what they might be looking for in that moment. Now, if you're working as a security guard, that might not be the right answer. But if you're working as a bus driver, you're going to be calling it in, whatever that looks like. And knowing that is a good point. I'm going to move you to another seat because then we got to relocate. But definitely a good point. All right, let's talk about some common questions. Is it a pitfall or a common question?
A couple of questions. One, I come from a different millennium, but anyway, tell me about dress. How do you dress for whatever the position is? And then secondly, if your resume that you write out has too many 25-cent words for the position, make sure how do you write the proper wording, and you don't put in words that maybe the interviewer doesn't understand, and you're not trying to show off. You just have a working vocabulary that is more sophisticated. How do you tone your interview, the resume to the proper way?
So with the resume, I would usually defer to Angie. But when you're looking at your resume, you want to align it to what your position is and what you're looking for. There's a key component there of if you use those larger words, that's part of your vernacular, be prepared to speak to that. Be prepared that they might ask you about those particular words and things like that. And for your first comment there was how you dress. That kind of comes with the first impressions, but a lot of times when you're coming in, and was going to address that a little bit later, asked for pitfalls, we're moving on. But yes, definitely something to look for with the dress. When you go into interview, be very mindful of where you're walking into, what the corporation is, what that dress code might look like. If you are going into healthcare, you might be able to get away with scrubs, depending on the organization. I actually don't recommend that though, because you do want to have a professional dress. And it can be a little bit more business casual. Now, if you were going in to be a plumber, that might look a little bit different, but you definitely want to have a professional dress whenever you go in for an interview. Absolutely. All right, let's get into some common questions that we hear. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to give you a pitfall.
Oh, yes, thank you.
I have asked this question over and over again, and I will say something like, what have you learned about Sorensen Engineering? Because you should do some research, right? And wrong answer is nothing. Or I didn't get a chance to look, or I've just seen you as I drive by the freeway. No, you need to do some research, because they're highly likely to ask you, what do you know about Sorensen Engineering? Or did you get a chance to look at the website? Or something like that. And you should speak to it. The other pitfall is when someone has memorized the whole website and proceed to tell you all the things that are wrong with it. So that's the other side of it. I have gotten that as well.
And absolutely, tell me about if you don't know anything about the organization you're walking into to interview for, that's absolutely a challenge. You should know what the job is, where you're going to be working, where you're going to be working, ideally what department you're looking at if you're going into a multi-department system. If you're going into my example, and you're going into the intensive care unit, you don't want to be talking about the medical surgical unit, or you don't want to be talking about the education department. Definitely things to keep in mind. And also, absolutely, do not memorize it and do not tell me everything I'm wrong right now. Everything wrong with the organization. You don't want to go in with a negative, really any negative answer is not something you want to do. You do not want to be giving them feedback at that point in time. Wait till you're hired and pass probation and then give all that feedback at that point in time. That's a better one. And common questions that you'll hear are things like that. And that's leading into our next section, which is those common questions. Tell me about our organization. Do that research, know that information. Another common one that I would go for is, I don't know why, but we all love tell me a little about yourself. Kind of opened up with that one, but it's something to think about. Have a 30-second who you are. Elevator speech, thank you. Elevator speech, so that you can quickly, confidently say who you are. And a lot of managers will open up with that one. My other one I hear a lot of is, tell me why you're here. What brought you in today? Why are you here? And that one is always fascinating, because then that is where you hear, well, I was driving by, or I just really need a job. You'll hear all sorts of answers. Have something that's going to be in alignment with that organization, with that job that you're applying for, what exactly you're looking for. I'm here because I'm looking to gain a position. It should look a bit like your intention or your objective that you're doing on your resume. Kind of have that be in alignment. And I will tell you, I will have the resume up, and I will hear what you are saying to me, and I will compare them, because I will be looking to see if this matches. And I've had times when they don't match, when what I'm seeing on paper is not what you're saying in person. And that's something that Angie brought up earlier, which was, if you're gonna write it in your resume, you need to be able to speak to it. If you are telling me you were Toastmasters district director in District 109, I'm gonna ask you which country you lived in, because I know that's across the world in 16 different countries. And you don't know that you're walking into a room with someone who's done Toastmasters. Same with the Eagle Scout example. Be able to speak to everything you write in your resume. If you say you speak Spanish, fair warning, someone in that office also speaks Spanish. And you might get a quick quiz when they go, you walk in, they go, hola, ¿cómo estás? And you go, hola. And I'll tell you, my Spanish is not great, but I can catch on real quick that you didn't catch on what that person was saying to you. So if you say you speak another language, be very prepared for that. Be very prepared for that. Now,
Sarah,
yes.
one question. When I interviewed years ago for a company I worked for, one of the questions they had for me, we have same person, another person has the same qualifications as you. Can you tell me should we hire you if they have the same qualifications as you? So you have to go in and sell yourself and be an asset for yourself.
Absolutely, and you're right. A fun question that they love to throw those kind of curveball questions at you, and more managers are getting away from the standard questions of, tell me your strengths, tell me your weaknesses, why do you want to work for us? And into more things like that. Tell me, if I have two candidates, what about you stands out? And that's your opportunity to sell yourself. Can everyone in this room sell themselves? And I don't. Okay. There is a moment there. I want you to know very clearly before you go into that interview who you are, what your values are, what your strengths are, and what your challenges are, and what you're doing to help mitigate those challenges. I don't care if you have to sit down for 45 minutes to journal about it before you go in the next day. These are key things you should have clear for yourself before you interview. You can tell someone's morals and values quite often in the interview section. I'll tell you, I am notoriously the very friendly interviewer. We're gonna have a nice casual conversation, and I'm gonna get you to show your real self. And it's not, yes, I want you to be a little bit friendly, I wanna get to know you, I want you to get to know me, because there's a two-way street for interviews. But it's also that I've seen people let up a little too much, slip and get a little too comfortable. Maybe they start using language that shouldn't be used in an office space or particularly in an interview. And now I'm catching that now before we go through the hiring process. Now I know other people that are intentionally intimidating. They go in with the intention to make you nervous, make you scared. Okay, great. They are intentionally challenging everything you say to try to make you uncomfortable, to see if you'll crack under pressure or how you'll handle this pressure. It's not my style, but be prepared for people like that. Or be prepared for the panel, hopefully not of 12, but for the panel where you have the intentionally intimidating one, the very friendly one, the shy, quiet one who's just listening in the corner, and maybe they're taking lots of notes and catching all the details in your interview and gonna follow up later. So be mindful of a room that might have different interviewers in those moments. Now your strengths, know your strengths, make them sound like strengths. Be confident in those strengths. You need to make sure that you know your strengths to a level where you can say confidently, I am very organized. And here's an example of how I am very organized. I will say whenever you answer a question, give examples. Fun questions right now, things that people are putting out a lot is the behavioral questions. Tell me about a time when. Okay. Be mindful of those because what they're looking for is more of a response of exactly what happened, what the actions were, and moments like that. There's an acronym for this. It's very fun because we love acronyms. We have DTM and now we have STAR. STAR meaning your situation, your task, your action, and then of course the response. So you want to get into moments here. What was the situation? Example, our team was struggling to meet a critical project deadline. Task, I was responsible for coordinating the project and keeping it on track. Action, I reorganized priorities, held brief daily check-ins, and worked with team members to remove obstacles. And the result, the project was completed on time and the client renewed their contract. So something to keep in mind as you answer those questions is how you break it down. Be prepared to give those key points as you have those moments. You really want to make sure that you're answering those very succinctly and giving specific examples. You don't want to be in a situation where you're at the questions, you're answering your question, and you're getting kind of tripped up. And I think for time's sake, we might be getting a little bit to a point of wrap it up. Definitely getting the signal right now. Other than those moments, there are some other key things that is a fun way to learn more and really give a side of yourself. And to go into more into that, I'm going to ask Deanne to join us here up on the stage.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I will cover some other pieces of topics. We may have a little bit of overlap here and there with each speaker, but we all also come from our own backgrounds. In my case, I have actually been interviewing for 45 years now, starting at a, fairly young age in running my first factory and personnel, as it was called back in the day, before human resources became the term, that I was doing interviews. I have interviewed thousands of people over the years, and I have interviewed for anything from very entry level and even temporary workers and so forth, where you really need to still make sure that they're going to mesh in a group, or you can mess things up in a big hurry with that, what is it, one bad apple? Can be a problem, even if it's just a temporary person. I've always felt it's very important that we are interviewing for the qualities that we're looking for. Like Angie, I do that all in person, looking at resumes. I've never used a system, and I know that a lot of companies do it, but I was with Staples during their highest growth period, and I was doing a lot of interviewing, constant hiring, at the point that I left the distribution center where I was the HR manager. We had almost 1,000 people. So it was a lot of interviews, but it was very important that it was the right person, not the right words in a resume. I've also interviewed across various clerical positions, professional positions, including accounting, engineering, PhD scientists, and executives of my companies, all of which require different listening skills and different interview questions and what you expect the person to be able to tell you. So when going for interviews, we have talked a bit about when does that start. Sarah, thank you for covering, because it really is, I think even in the parking lot, I always make a habit, I've been with my current company for almost going on 24 years now, so it's been a while, but I get there very early. I've even driven to the location days beforehand to make sure I know where I'm going. Now that's because of a little situation where I ended up at the Chino men's prison, because early some of these Google Maps, when you printed it out, didn't do such a good job, and it didn't realize that that street does not go through. So you go and you make sure that you're there plenty early, but then you don't park right in front of the doors, and you don't walk in 25 minutes early, a half an hour early. I've had people come in 45 minutes and an hour ahead of time. I am not ready to talk to them at that point. So there's a lot of different things that you're looking at and being prepared. Now, I can tell you that over those thousands of interviews that I've done, typically the hiring rate has only been 2 to 5%. Now that might sound depressing, but here's the key. It's very easy and very important to be one of the standouts, because there's so much that's just the same across people. You've heard some of the the things that we run into, and they're true, and they're all too common. So to separate and differentiate yourself is actually relatively easy by things like being prepared. Sarah touched a bit on it, but also just what things you do to get yourself in the right mindset. My company is going through a situation where we are closing our Western division. This at its core is a company that has been around for already 93 years. Now, none of us have been there 93 years, but the reality is there are people that now are out looking for positions that had been with us for over 35 years. A lot of our staff had been there 25 plus years. I was not, one of the longest term at coming into 24 years. So those types of situations can be hard, but you want to get yourself in the right mindset. And one of the things that I do so much coaching on now is what you do in the morning, especially as you're looking for jobs, interviewing, etc., to get yourself reminding yourself of what are the things that you've accomplished. What are the compliments that you've gotten in past? And those things that they're helping to remind themselves of to be in that right mindset when they go to the interview are also the things that create the great stories in the interviews. So getting prepared both in the mindset to be ready and out there also helps you to remember what are those things that you want to convey. An interviewer, what they're listening and, as Sarah really clearly pointed out, what we're watching for, even in facial, body language, all of that, that we're looking for who is that best match. And I can tell you it's not the words on the paper. And in my case, I've always looked at, it's like a three-legged stool in order to be strength. And it is attitude, aptitude, and certainly the skill sets and what that person brings in. But for me, the experience is often a very distant third, because if somebody has aptitude, we can teach that person. Now there are positions, such as in the medical field, where maybe that's not such a good idea if they don't already have some background. Angie's probably not going to hire an engineer that came out of the nursing and decided they wanted to be an engineer, although it sounds like she's had the opportunity to do that, but that's not so typical. But often in positions, it's really more about what it is, how they come across, how they're going to work with people. And attitude is multi-pronged as well. They might have a great attitude towards their coworkers, but stinky attitude towards work in general. So it's got to be attitude about their work ethic and how they come across and what they like to do. I love people that I hear some stories where they acted like an owner. I don't think there's anything better than somebody who takes their work so seriously, might not always be the right word, but where their care and concern for customers or the company or coworkers, if I hear stories that are an example of that, that goes a long way with me, because I know they are going to have that kind of diligence and work ethic. I've had people that are horrible to work with, and hopefully you can tell in the interview, sometimes I've inherited them, and then you deal with it on the backside, but you have to deal with it where it's always about, I care more about the company than anybody else, and that's why, I'm so difficult to deal with. Well, you know what? That doesn't go very far, because a lot of times they're the ones who say that, but they're not necessarily demonstrating it. So we're listening in these stories. You want to think about what are your key strengths, and then within those strengths, and the strength can be what you're looking for, what you're passionate about, what you've done well in past. So you think about that before interviews to already have prepared the stories that help to demonstrate that. I like to take where you've got a couple of those key strengths and you find the stories that demonstrate more than one of those things, because We're listening and watching for your characteristics, your character. I don't mean, visible characteristics. I mean your character. Work ethic, that attitude across the spectrum of attitude. What are your transferable skills? What are you passionate about? I love to see when somebody's interviewing what lights them up. And you can tell if there's something they're really passionate about, then I'm looking for, okay, what parts about that job would lean into that? And there's times I've interviewed people and I've talked them out of the job. They say, I see where your passion is. This is what I recommend that you're looking for. I had a situation just a couple weeks ago where somebody came up to me at wedding and said, you interviewed me years ago. You gave me excellent advice, and I thank you for that. I didn't hire them, but they liked that I gave them a bit of information that helped them to find what they were looking for. So in your stories, the way that it was, a wise person told me long, long ago, the first time that I actually had to interview, my first 14 years across 2 companies being a plant manager and human resources, I didn't have to interview for those 2 jobs just the way that it fell. So when I decided I was going to switch and go to just the human resources hat and, really go after positions that maybe I wouldn't look so qualified for, and the coach that I had at that time, the way he talked about when you're looking at, he called it your blue chip qualities, that these are the things you don't want to leave sitting on the table that you did not talk about when you leave an interview. You want to make sure they're in there. And the way he explained it is, you don't talk about a story that's just one. You want it layered, and it's like plywood. If you take any layer of plywood, it's very thin and flimsy. There's no strength to it at all. But by the time it's woven back and forth, and there's multiple layers, the strength is there. So when you can do that in your stories, it really is very helpful. Another thing that really helps in stories, and you don't do this with every one, but you might have 1 or 2, is where you can have a third-party reference, because it's even stronger than you saying something about yourself. And it's also, sometimes people feel like, oh, I can't brag about myself. Well, you are selling yourself in an interview, so you better be able to talk about yourself. But if you can refer back to, remember those things to get in the right mindset? What have people complimented you on? Maybe what did a past boss praise you for or show appreciation for? If you can, in an answer, say, my coworker said they really appreciated and then, or complimented, that gives you a whole separate strength, because it's like bringing a reference right into your answers. And it's a good idea to have at least one of those that you're going to find a way to weave in. Now here's the thing, you're going to come up with, your stories, that what you need to tell. And by stories, I don't mean tall tales. As we've all said, these need to be things that are true that you can back up. And of course you're putting yourself in the best light. You should be. But you want to make sure that you've really got those down and ready to deliver on those. You might have to search for the questions that are asked to how you're going to weave that in, and you've got to be able to be flexible with it. Toastmasters, by the way, is the best preparation for interviews, bar none. So anybody that's looking not just for interviews, but even career growth, you're being interviewed to an extent all the time, because when you're interacting at work, my promotion 6 months ago to president of the company was because of what I was doing in meetings and other activities. It wasn't because I knew there was going to be an opening. It wasn't something I was actively going after, but it was by showing day in, day out, different meetings, my business acumen. That's how it happened. So Toastmasters is a big part of that for me. I have been in Toastmasters since 1996. You'd think I'd have gotten it right by now, right? But it's because I am constantly growing and learning, and it's not just what it does for me, but it's helping other people. Also helps you in your career, because then you are learning to listen, I mean, you can't be in a Toastmasters and do an evaluation and not learn how to listen. You're learning how to read people because you're watching body language also. So there's my plug, and all of my HR, network people and people that I work with at work, they know somewhere there's going to be a Toastmasters plug, but it's because it makes a difference. Table topics alone is such good prep because you've got to find, what you want to say. You've got to find the where to do it. And here's another little secret. If somebody doesn't ask you a good question, you realize, that I need to make sure I say that. You can often weave in part of your story in a question. So you may be talking about, this is something important to me because of what I've done here. Is that something that would be of value to your company? There's ways, or how would that be utilized? Is there opportunity to use that aspect? So there's ways that if you got down there and you realize nobody's asked you that question that you wanted to be able to answer, there's ways that you can work it in there, for sure. Sarah mentioned about not giving short answers. You've got to be prepared to give an open-ended answer to a closed question. Many interviewers are not savvy. Here you're talking to some people that have done a lot of interviews, but often it's maybe a brand new hiring manager, or maybe it's a coworker that is part of a panel. They may not know how to ask the questions, so be prepared to not just say yes or no or good or whatever. You need to be prepared to use every one of those questions as an opportunity to share aspects about you that are what are going to get you hired. Let me just double check where I'm at on time-wise. Okay. I want to do a quick exercise with you guys. So let's take 1 minute, either write if you have something to write on, or if you don't, just think of something that was a situation where you have gone above and beyond, either on the job or maybe in a volunteer situation with a school project, that type of thing. So take 1 minute. I can only keep so many timers going here. And think about that. And then afterwards, we're going to take 2 minutes and you're going to pair up with somebody and you're going to share those stories. And then I will take 2 of them for somebody to talk about to the group.
On Zoom, they can pair up in a personal chat.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. In Zoom, if you would please pair up perhaps in a personal chat so they're not just popping up on the screen, that would be great. I know, I think I have to turn around to look at them, but I really need to look at the camera, right? So this is why we still practice.
Could you repeat the question, please?
So the question is to write down about a time and the situation where you went above and beyond what was expected of you. So this is a positive-based question. You'll also be asked negative-based questions in an interview, but this is a chance to share a positive-based question. Okay. So now let's go ahead, pair up with somebody. And it's okay if there's a couple of you paired up, that's absolutely fine. We're going to take 2 minutes to do that. And then at the end of that, I am going to ask for 2 volunteers to share an example. This room gets very spread out, I know.
And so I have prepared materials, books and things like that. So I can only show
So you started on subtext of what Yes, that's what I'm saying. So you started here.
Okay, do I have two volunteers that would like to share what they were talking about? I want at least one from our live audience. Are you comfortable coming up and telling us so that we can hear you? Okay. Brave soul. Thank you so much. And your name?
Derek. I'm
Derek?
in this club.
Okay, excellent, Derek. Please share the example.
It happened in 2008. I was working at a high school in Philadelphia, and then I was in a hallway, and it was a bunch of kids. These kids was walking down the hallway, and this girl was walking. And then, all of a sudden, it was a rush of kids. It's about 200 kids. I'm standing right here. And one of the students, by accident, bumped. This girl was a little girl. She was little. She was in 9th grade. And the student came and bumped into her. She went like, boom! Boom! Ran her head into the thing. Boom! She was knocked out. And I told the kids, go to class, go over here, go right over here. And I told her. And the principal called ambulance unit. And the principal wouldn't go. The principal was scared. And I said, I'm the NTA for the school district. I got a principal. So I went with the girl in the paramedics unit. Never been in the paramedics unit. And I took her to the hospital. And I sat there about, I was maybe 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Then her parents came up and said, thank you. I said, thank you. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Is there somebody on the Zoom that would like to respond?
Paul Brooks.
Paul.
Great.
Paul Brooks.
Thank you. Yes. Are you able to hear me?
Okay. Yes, I am. Yes, we are.
Thank you very much. A time, and I have a full speech I've given about this, perhaps even a contest speech, so I'm going to shorten it a little bit. But a time I was nearly ready to, had a very arduous day at work, just wanted to leave, wanted to head off home. I bet everybody in the room can remember a time like that, when you're just, I've had enough. Got out to my car, ready to turn on the key to go home, and realized I had not set up for the next day's experiments that I was supposed to do. And I'm an engineer. I'm in charge of that experiment. I went back in, spent another 20 to 30 minutes setting up for the next week's experiments, had no idea fully what I was going to do, hadn't even worked out the plan, but just wanted to do something. Came back in Monday morning early before the shift. The phone goes off and the lab says, please tell me you have this material ready. Like, okay, go check. It's the material I prepared on that Friday before I'd head out of the office. Got to the warehouse with that material. That material ended up being able to send a medicine to a little baby across the world and ended up contributing to saving the baby's life. Wow. So it is a key moment that I hold very dear for remembering sometimes somebody's life could be in your hands and you may not know it. And it may only be 30 minutes, 5 minutes, or we heard another speaker today, 2 minutes that it takes in order to do something different. Back to you.
Go ahead and pick back up then. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pick back up because I know time-wise, I want to wrap up on my section so that we can see what we still have time for. Although it would be lovely if they're able to get back. So some of the things also to consider, there's first impression, and I know they say first impressions are like within the first seconds. I personally do not believe in making that kind of snap judgment. I can't tell you how many times over the years that what somebody's first impression might have been was not the best. And it's important to me as interviewers. So I know we're talking about being prepared for interviews, but if you are ever an interviewer, don't make snap decisions. Now, sometimes there's something so egregious that, well, it is over. But a lot of times, as you get talking to that person, you may discover that there's really more to them, or maybe they're, you know. We're getting it. Okay. Can you hear it now? Rob, are you able to hear it through the camera?
It's working.
Okay. So, Rob, while you're getting that fixed,
Just keep going.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep going. So there's also the ending impression. So you want to make sure as you're leaving that meeting that, you know, you still have, I know COVID ruined handshakes largely, but if it's a company, you know, yeah, and I don't mean, we had somebody with boogers at our company once that I'm like, oh yeah, not touching that person. I'm so glad somebody came and told me they were like doing that and wiping it on the furniture. Yeah, we have stories, they're bad. But you want to make sure that on the way out too, that you're still making good eye contact, you're showing, you know, still the enthusiasm for the job. Now, you may have discovered during the interview, because you better be interviewing the company too. This is like dating in a hurry. And if everybody's not up front, I mean, I as an employer, I tell the good, bad, and ugly, because I don't want somebody getting in and then finding out it's not a good match for them. And I don't want to have somebody that's not being genuine with me. And that's something that in these, you know, you get pretty good about telling when somebody's being genuine or not, that you want to make sure it is a two-way street and you've got to have good questions prepared. Now, it's got to be good questions prepared that's going to tell you something. I will tell you my number one pet peeve question is the one where somebody says, so why is this position open? And my take with that is, one, why does that matter to you? Because just because the last person blew it doesn't mean you are. So, I've actually flipped that around on people before and go, why do you actually want to know that? And maybe it's just a pet peeve for me, but I prefer to be asked something like, what are you looking for in this position? Or maybe in the first 90 days, what are the frustration points or the pain points that you're looking to have somebody take care of, where it's adding value to that applicant rather than why is it open? So is the camera not working either? Okay. Maybe if that helps for volume, that whatever works, we'll do that. So make sure that you're always asking questions, because the number one reason for resignation is not working well with your immediate supervisor. That person in particular, you need to know if they are somebody you can work with, because there are bad companies and there are bad supervisors. You want to make sure that you are doing a good job. You also want to know if they're about to fold or having severe financial difficulties. If you're up for the risk, that's great. If you're not, then maybe you want to keep looking. If you get turned down, remain gracious about it. There's Martin Yates has a book. It used to be called Knock 'em Dead, The Ultimate Job Seeker's Guide. Now he calls it The Ultimate Job Seeker's Guide, Knock 'em Dead. I don't like the rest of his series, but I do like his cover to cover, this is the whole process. And he's got a section in there about, snatching it out of the jaws of death. And I have ended up hiring the number 2 candidate a number of times because of how they handled themselves in the rejection. And I have had a job offer come up because of how I handled the not getting the position. So you want to make sure that you stay courteous and professional, reiterate why you're interested in that company. If you're not interested in the company, then say thank you very much, and you don't need to, continue, because not every job is a match. It's like dating. Not everybody's a match. Not every company's a match. Not every type of work is a match. And feel free to allow yourself that freedom. You don't want to be so desperate to get the position that you're ignoring those warning signals. Okay. For my section, that really concludes just, backing up one step. Make sure you're sending a thank you note and make sure it is timely. Emailing is fine with a thank you note. I do still occasionally get a written thank you note, and I certainly, feel like that shows a little extra something, but it also takes longer. So email is really quite fine with that, and you just want to have that courtesy because that company, those people spent time talking to you, and it may be that that's just your first or second interview. You don't know how many they got queued up for you. You want to make sure you're doing that at every step. That concludes my section.
Thank you, Deanne. Okay, for our next segment, this will be all interactive.
So
Do you remember the STAR method that we just talked about? Situation, task, action, result. Here's an example response. Our team was struggling to meet critical project deadline. I was responsible for coordinating the project and keeping it on track. I organized priorities, held brief daily check-ins, worked with the team members to remove all of our obstacles, and the project was completed on time, and the client renewed their contract. That handled all 4 of those. It was pretty quick, right? We're going to have some opportunities for you now. We are going to conduct a panel interview. If we can bring our table over. 3 chairs for the interviewers. Do we have any volunteers to be interviewed? We have Suzanne. Any others? Yes, ma'am. What's your name? Gwen. Gwen. We'll have you come up here and get ready. We'll do you one at a time. But we're going to get set up here, okay? We have Suzanne and Gwen. Anybody else? We can take one more. No? Well, you two may get more questions then. You want it? Come on. All right, we have 3. We'll just sit here in the front. Thank you so much for doing that. Okay.
Just going to be on this.
We'll start with Gwen. How's that sound? And we'll do Suzanne and April. Okay. So I just wanted to reiterate the STAR method so that you can use this, right? Okay. We're going to have one at a time. We're going to have Gwen be interviewed.
Don't forget to speak loud. Speak loud, please.
Speak loud because we have a little impromptu
Videographer today.
videographer. Thank you very much. We will sit down and we're going to have maybe 3 questions. After the answer, we'll give you some feedback. Do we want to move this way a little bit because most of our group is over here, or what do you think?
Cheat it a little bit because they can watch it
Okay.
and we can
Yeah, we'll cheat a little bit. Okay. All right. Now, a couple of things I want to mention. Key takeaways that presenters mentioned. You are also. I'm trying to figure out if I like you, and you want to figure out if you like me. Can we work together? This is just a conversation. That's another takeaway, okay? But you do want to be succinct and give us the information you want to give us, all right? Those are just some little tidbits before we get started, okay?
Okay.
Are you ready? Can everybody hear us online now that we're on a little different? I feel like I'm in journalism here.
Thumbs up?
Yeah. Thumbs up? Okay. Yeah, I got some thumbs up.
Okay, cool.
All right, we're going to have a seat. We will have a question from Sarah, then Deanne, and then if we have time, I'll get. All right.
Come on in. Okay, there we go.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Gwen.
Hi, Gwen.
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
We're so
Sarah.
glad you came in. Did you have any trouble finding us?
No, I didn't. My GPS actually worked.
All right.
That's new for this organization. We're usually hard to find.
Yeah. We have
Impressed.
too many corners.
Yes.
I'm Angie, this is Sarah, and this is Deanne, and we are, have a few questions for you, and Sarah's going to start.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and just jump right in. Can you tell me about a time when you had to learn something new very quickly?
Yes. Recently I left my job. I was a bus driver for many, many years. And doing one instance, a child, you know, they like to get out of their seatbelt and everything, and I'm not really familiar with that. So I had to pull over. I called it in, secured the bus, called it in, and let them know what was going on. And so they instructed me to try to coach the child right back into the seat. So I did. He was crying. He was just really, really upset. So I had to let him know that everything was okay. You know, we have to watch our words and everything. So we can't really hug him and touch him, which I really wanted to, because he was really out of control. So, but I was able to get him to calm down, to keep his seatbelt on. And I let him know, oh, we have to go this way so we can get to the school. Actually talked to him. It was a special need round. And so I had to learn that real quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
Tell me about a time that if you had it to do over again, you would have handled the work situation differently. And what did you learn from that situation?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. Well, there was a time that I had a conflict with a coworker, and instead of me addressing it right there, I just stormed out. You know, I was just very, very upset. And for a while, we wasn't speaking to each other until it started really bothering me at night and I couldn't sleep. So I had to address it. So if I could do that over again, I would have nipped it in the bud right then. I wouldn't have waited.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for us?
Yes, I do. Well, one of the questions is, when will I hear from you?
That's a great question. Our process is we have some initial interviews,
Yes.
which will wrap up the end of this week, and we should be able to get back to you on Monday morning.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking for it, whether it's good news or bad news.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, and thanks for coming in.
Okay, you have a good day.
Okay.
All right.
So I just went right to see if she had a question for us, and she had a very good one. Some feedback. What are your thoughts?
So some of the things that I noticed, I will say in that very first question, you did a great job of giving us an example. And that was really something that's key in a tell me about a time when. It's something we really want to, yeah, thank you. Maybe. Okay. Something you really want to focus on is giving a specific example. I also really enjoyed how you resolved the situation. And in there, you're demonstrating for us empathy and caring towards the work that you're doing. I really felt like that gave us kind of an idea of who you are and how you're going to work in whatever imaginary organization we're in. And kind of gave us a little bit of your experience as well. So I think that was a really good example on that, particularly that first question. I really saw a good moment there. On the second question, there was a point in the second question where I wish you would have expounded a little bit more on the conflict situation. Now, I said earlier, and I still hold to, do not tell us all the tea. We don't need to know what the problem was, but definitely a moment to give us, you know, I stormed out, we had a conflict, but when we got to the resolution part, you were just, I wish I would have handled it better, but I would have loved to hear more about, I went to her eventually and spoke with her, and we were able to discuss it and work through that. So that's something I picked up on.
On the second question, I have a couple of other comments. I agree. How did you handle it? However, I would have given a little less information. I would not have said I stormed out. I would not have said I didn't sleep. Something more like I did have a conflict with a coworker and I was upset by that and I slept on it. And then the next day I went and talked to her and we were able to resolve it. Then you're not giving too much information about how you react, because you really don't want to say, I stormed out, because I'm thinking, whew, I don't think I can take this person to be storming in and out because something didn't go her way. Okay? Now, it could have been very bad and it was worth you storming out, but I wouldn't phrase it that way. Does that help you a little bit with that? It's the personal information that you don't necessarily need to give, and you can reframe that. So you just think about it.
I agree with the comments on the first two questions, so I won't cover that. On your question that you asked, there were some extra comments, you know, whether it's good or bad. You don't want to already be putting that into the interviewer's head. You want to be assuming you're going to get that position. And so keep it framed in that positive light of, when will I hear back from you for my next step, for instance, you could say, because then you're already acting as if it's going to be the answer that you want, and it helps to reinforce that for the interviewer.
I often hear, what are my next steps?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
don't forget, it's an opportunity for you to interview as well. Like when Deanne said, what do the first 90 days look like for me? You could rephrase that. What does success look like in the first 90 days?
Right.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Definitely.
Suzanne. Thank you, Glenn.
Nothing picks up.
Oh, all right. First, thank you so much for coming in.
Yes.
Did you have any trouble finding us?
Actually, I didn't, because I made a little field trip before today. And
Very good.
took the back road and then the front road, but here I am, and I got here on time today.
Appreciate that diligence.
You're
I'm
welcome.
Angie, this is Sarah, and this is Deanne, and we're your interviewers for today. Thank you so much for coming in. Sarah's going to start us off.
Okay.
Great. We're going to jump right into some of our more detailed questions. Tell me about a situation where you had to remain professional under pressure.
A recent one was intercepting a class that I had shown up for and not aptly prepared. And so I wasn't quite ready for the context of the children. And so I came into the classroom and read the directions for the day, and then went through the day with them saying, now, is this how we would do this in this class? Here are our expectations. So it was a collaborative day of maneuvering that instead of saying, listen, I'm the teacher and here are the rules. So it turned out well, and we had a good, successful day. We accomplished all the things that the teacher would have us done in the class.
Thank you.
Tell me about something that you do to still actively learn and grow in your craft for your profession.
I read. Literature and art and music are important parts of the components that I bring to a classroom as a substitute teacher. And right now I'm reading a couple of novels for young adults that are very engaging. And I love coming into a classroom that's reading that particular book and be able to say, oh, what did you think about Scout and her relationship with her dad? And they go, you've read To Kill a Mockingbird. So it helps me establish myself with them and let them know I'm on board with what the expectations of the day are as far as the curriculum. So that's what I do to prepare, spend my weekends reading and making up innovative games and that sort of thing to get ready for K through 12, which are the grades that I substitute for currently.
Wow, broad range.
All right, thank you. Can you give us an example of feedback that changed the way you work? Feedback you've received.
Change the way I work, but change the way I think about students. There is a way that I think about how I serve middle school children and elementaries and high school students. I've been in high schools. Been in high schools recently and following the curriculum, of course. They're gone on vacation already, many of them in their minds. But this one particular student that I had to remind, this is due at the end of the period, and not be on her, but that consistent, how are we doing? Is there anything you need help with? Gave me a little note on it. Torn piece of paper from the binder, said, and a wink as she left class, best substitute ever. And it was like, really? So that felt good in that my presence was appreciated and acknowledged from an unexpected place.
Thank you. Do you happen to have any questions for us?
Well, I do. I'm particularly interviewing for this position because I attended an event that you put on in February, just kind of looking at what the community was doing for education, as I'm an educator, and it was wonderful. They had a culinary arts class that did the evening, and some artwork that was auctioned off. It was a fundraiser, but it was first class. And I said, you fit right in here. You're first class too. I think this could be a fit. And so I applied and I'm at the interview position now. So I did enjoy the evening and saying in my profession where I am now after years of teaching, this is the next step for me. So it feels right and I hope to become part of your education community.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you. Nice to
Did
meet
everybody
you.
hear her answers? It's a little bit low, but I thought she did very well. Comments?
So one comment, unless I heard it wrong, your last question was if she had a question, right? So you brilliantly brought in a story that you wanted to tell, but you did not ask a question. So make sure the way you started it out was really good, but then you got a little too into that and you forgot to ask a question, which means you didn't answer the question. And I agree. You do have a tendency, you know this, Suzanne, of really dropping your volume, and in an interview, make sure that you're, projecting out further so that they're not missing part of a golden answer.
Okay, she did do one golden answer that we learned tonight. Can anybody tell me what it was?
Was she?
She brought in the third party about who she is.
Right.
Do you recall that? She brought in it was in your next to the last answer.
Yeah. About
the
student.
note, the student said best substitute ever.
Yep.
She didn't say, I'm the best substitute there ever was, I'm brilliant. No. She said, I went to this school, this is what we went through, and at the end of the day, she also went through the situation and what occurred, and finished with, and the student gave me a note, best substitute ever.
Very strong.
So that was a very strong answer, I thought. Any more comments?
Really, all of it. Your first two questions in particular, very strong examples, very strong references, and you were answering specifically our questions. I asked about being in pressure, and you said, yeah, I came in, I didn't know what I was doing today, so I used that as an opportunity to work with the students and be collaborative. And I think that gives us a strength for you of being able to pivot and being able to see, like Deanne was saying earlier, multiple strengths in one answer, which is really what you're going for. Great job.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, April. You ready? We've had two people before you.
Trying to find hard questions.
All right, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you. My Pat question. Did you have any trouble finding us?
I did when I came the night before, but I came prepared today.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. I am Angie, this is Sarah, and this is Deanne, and we get the opportunity to interview you today.
Yes.
Thank you for coming in. We're going to start with Sarah.
All right, we're going to jump right into some of our tougher questions. You tell us about a time when you failed to achieve a goal.
A time when we failed to achieve a goal. When we first started, our organization I'm a part of is called Toastmasters, and I had a coach that would tell me, your club needs to be distinguished. I didn't know what it meant, but I learned there was goals that needed to be set. So the first year that our club started, we didn't reach distinguished, and I thought that we failed. And I felt like a failure. But what I learned later was that it took a process to get to distinguished. And so even though we failed in the first year, we worked towards it, and in our third year, we were able to become distinguished. So what I learned from that process is that, one, I needed to learn what the standard was, and then rally the team around it, and we built what was necessary to not just become distinguished or to reach that goal once, but we built the process so we could do it year over year. And that was more important, building up to that and missing it that first year, so we had the foundation to maintain it and not just hit the goal once.
Thank you.
Tell me about a time that you took extra initiative.
Yes, there was a time where I was a project coordinator, and part of my goal was to partner with churches. And one of the things that I realized is that even if you have something good, people are busy. So what I did to go, I'm sorry, would you repeat the question? I want to make sure.
Tell me about a time that you took initiative.
Where I took initiative. So what I did was, in order to take initiative, I looked at the church website to find out what activities did they have going on already. And I looked for opportunity for us to partner with that church. And so when I went in, I didn't look for the yes. I said, I noticed that you have this program going on. Would it be possible for us to bring our program to this program to enhance it? And taking that initiative opened the door to further conversation, because I already knew what they had going on by looking at their calendar. And they didn't give me a yes, but they gave me an additional conversation from that.
All right. Thank you for coming in. Do you have any questions for us?
I do. I noticed on your website that you guys were talking about your vision statement for the next year, and there's some changes that will be coming up. How do you see the company's new direction impacting the department that I would be going into?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking that. We are in a rapid expansion right now. And we put some information on the website, but we are just actively trying to get more people in here to expand several departments. And which department did you apply for?
I'm looking at the finance department.
The finance department. We have, right now we have 3 individuals in our finance department. And over the course of the next year, we feel we'll be adding 2 more.
Okay.
Because the entire company is growing so much, we want to make sure that we are ready for everything that's coming in that department.
Fantastic.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it
All
does.
right, thank you. All right, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
I lost track.
Good right, Angie. Good right. Thank you. Good improv on Angie. Thank you.
To all of our volunteers. They did fantastic. I have some comments for April. Her first question out of the gate, she went through the star. Boom, 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 boom. And she did it great. She did it with using some words that sometimes people are afraid to use. We failed. We failed, but we came out of it. And that's what we want to hear. How do you feel about that when you failed, but you figured it out? And she added to that, we built a process so we'll achieve that year after year. When you're, especially accounting or finance, right, you need to build those systems in that will keep you going year after year. You don't want it breaking if somebody gets promoted, right, or leaves. Your other project, you asked for clarity, and I love it. Absolutely. We didn't talk much about nerves tonight because Toastmasters teaches us about nerves, right? We use our nerves. You're more excited. You show more drive when you're using your nerves, but we also tend to forget. And you asked for clarity. Perfect. Do not be afraid to ask for clarity. I'm sorry, what was that question again? Because you don't want to ramble on. You want to make sure you know. When you're at work, you're going to do the same thing, correct? Your manager gives you something that's a little vague to do. You're going to ask for clarity. So we want to know that you're going to do that and you're not just going to go off and do what you think you're supposed to do, right? So I think those are very good answers. What do you think?
I would agree. I think I loved the way you pivoted the failed conversation. And I'll say that that was a question I love to use is how have you failed? What project have you failed? Because I want to see how people react to that. And I don't want to hear, well, we gave up or they react to it, or I've never failed before. We're looking for in that moment is that expansion on, yes, this didn't work, but here's how we improved, here's what we learned from it. And you very fluently gave that to us without reacting to a scary word like failed. You gave really good examples throughout, and I think that's something that's key for a lot of those moments, and you kept us engaged. And I would agree 100% with Angie, always ask clarifying questions. Even if it's in the middle of your question and you got lost, route yourself back and we're here for you. That's okay.
You did it, and I turned around and did it to you because I went, what department is she on? Now, if I were really interviewing, I'd have the resume and the application in front of me, right? But I thought, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. What department again? Okay. Yes.
Certainly you handled all of the questions well. I was particularly impressed with the way you asked the question where you were reinforcing that you were a person who's giving real thought to this, that it's something that you were definitely interested in, that you took not only the time to look at the website, let's say, but you weren't just trying to spit back at us, because candidates will tend to do that. They'll read the website and then they want to tell us the vision statement. But you didn't do it that way. You used it to reinforce that you are a person who is really thinking about this and where you're coming from, and you were also touching on what might be, not only that you were forward-looking about the changes and that you were open to changes, that you didn't come across like, oh, you're going to have a lot of changes, that you were open to it, but that also you would probably be a good part of going to those next steps for us. I thought was well done.
Yeah, everybody did very well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Any last questions before we wrap up and give this back to our Speakers Bureau Chair? Anyone on Zoom? Last minute questions?
All right.
Okay.
All
All right, Tom.
Tom.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yes. All right. Wow, what a program. I am so happy and so proud of the program that Angie put together, and couldn't have imagined it being done any better. I guess this is a good opportunity for me to. By the way, before I let anybody go, Michael, I want you to close out and say a few words. And we've got a little bit of business to take care of, and I want to welcome past Division Governor of the Year, Catherine Robbins, all the way from Florida. Good to see you here. Anyway, my opportunity to thank Angie for having faith in me and putting me in as Speakers Bureau Chair like 10 years ago. So I appreciate that, and hopefully we've lived up to your hopes and expectations. We have one piece of special business because we have a person in the room here who qualified last month. Musa is in the audience, and he qualified, but he didn't come, so he doesn't get his pin today. He'll get it another time. Anyway, and Forrest, you want to come on up? Forrest is one of those rare birds that is now qualified in District 100 and District 12. So you get to see he's going to have two different pins. If you can see him on there with his red pin from District 100 and now the blue pin from District 12. And who knows what'll happen next year.
Is there another district that has a green one?
I don't know. You have to think about that next year. Are we going to have new pins? I'll pose that question to Sarah. We're going to have new pins next year and pay for them. Pay for new pins for the new district. Well, it'll be something to think about. All right. I also Sarah needs some advertising to put together of what's happening with special this weekend. So I'll let her do that commercial. Come back to Michael after that, and then we'll talk a little bit about next month's meeting.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, 203, maybe green. That's a good idea. I like that. This weekend, if you are excited and ready to learn more, we have our Toastmasters Leadership Institute. We will be doing our TLI at the California University of Science and Medicines, right there in Colton, California, where we will be doing our officer training. Thank you so much. 8:15. It starts at 8:15 in the morning.
Okay, and I'll have a little bonus for any of you who are QSs who've lost your pin or never got it. Show up at Saturday's meeting, and I will have extra pins to make sure you get a replacement pin for the one you didn't have. For your speaker, all QSs need to get your pin. That would be a good place to do it. Our last official function of something happening at District 12 this year, so that'll be a chance to do that. Okay, let me hear something from Michael. You have any closing words for this final District 12 Speakers Bureau meeting? My co-chair.
Once again, we've shown the skills and what we have within our District 12, even if District 12 comes to an end. The panel was stellar. I mean, people pay real money for a panel like this to learn half as much. And this was fabulous. And I really appreciate Sarah, Deanne, and Angie for putting this on, and all the brave interviewers. As we move on to the new 203 Speakers Bureau, hey, we have no secret knowledge, Tom. We're going to need volunteers to help us figure out how we want to do this. In person, hybrid, all online. Should the qualifications change? How are we going to do this that we go now from, think about this, from Pomona to Utah? It's kind of a crazy idea. But I look forward to for us brainstorming and having some new opportunities across Las Vegas, San Bernardino, Riverside, a little bit of that Lancaster and Palmdale area, and believe it or not, 6 counties in Utah. And the last thought, District 12 got its start in Lancaster and Palmdale years ago before that went defunct, and now they're back with us again. I love when a plan comes together 40 years later. Mr. Tom.
Thank you, past international director Michael, and made me think we have another past international director that maybe we should. I talked to him. Someone told me that Greg Scott has been hospitalized for a little while, so maybe we can all, those of you who are of a mind to give a few prayers on his behalf. We would certainly all appreciate that, because we hate to lose one of our most stalwart members of this district. And next month, we have our first Speakers Bureau meeting, July 1. We have to put on a pretty good dog and pony show, because we'll have a number of people from the new The other half of the district will be coming to maybe see us. Hopefully they'll be driving all the way from Las Vegas, but most likely they'll be coming in online. And we keep hoping that we probably should do a little warning so people don't give up on us and think we're not coming back, because that we have run into some issues with online. So just have faith and just stick with us. I'm glad that almost all of the online people did stick with us. But next month we have scheduled 3 speakers. We want to put on a program that shows them what Speakers Bureau is all about. So I'm going to ask Michael Ozier ahead of time to prepare a few thoughts. Maybe we'll talk about this on the phone, but maybe you'll talk a little bit about what it takes either to become a member of Speakers Bureau or to continue to your responsibilities as a member of qualified speakers. So maybe sometime you'll do that a little bit. We have 3 speakers coming up. One of those, I see Michael Alexander is here, Sarah is also here, and Ed Eddinghausen, our accredited speaker in this district, will be, those are the 3 speakers. And I'm sure Michael will have something. He's as chair of District 100 Speakers Bureau and a qualified speaker in District 12. I'm sure he'll have a great program for us. And Sarah is going to give us something really special, because it's the first speech, the first actual thing that's happening in District 203 will be a Speakers Bureau meeting in which she will be coming in with her vision for the new district for 20 minutes or so. And so we have those 3 speakers, and we will have a few others speak also who are qualified speakers who kind of give the audience a vision, an idea of what it's like to become a qualified speaker. So the only people I will be scheduling to speak are qualified speakers next month. Those 3 will be doing major presentations, and then there'll be some shorter ones probably. So we'll go with that. With that, I want to thank everyone in the audience for coming, and especially those who had the perseverance to stick around until the end and didn't give up on us. And I hope that many people go out and get a job because of this. But I want to make a suggestion. I think at a district conference for the educational session, possibly in the afternoon, this very same program should be put on to encourage people to come. There'll be some people, believe it or not, I believe there will be some people come just because that is an offering in the afternoon. So an extracurricular activity, supposedly, and a public service to our members and possibly non-members. Might even let them pay money to come as non-members to come to that particular session. With that, thank you so much for all the hard work you guys put into this program, and have a good, safe trip home.